It's 40 degrees out here in Wisconsin, and I've decided, you know what? It's time to take a ride, do some thinking, and tell you all about my first Harley Davidson. So let's cruise over to this lake and smoke this square, and let's talk. I've been asked a lot of times in my life and during my career of doing this, what do you do, D-Lo? What do bikers do? What do real bikers do? This is a big part of it, y'all. Jump on your bike, take off, take a little cruise. You stop at a nice remote, secluded, quiet area, and you sit on your bike and reflect, reminisce on your life as a biker, fallen brothers, may even think about an old love. But today, I stopped down here to my little spot to think about my first Harley. Back in 2005, I moved to a little small town way up north in Wisconsin. Needless to say, it was a culture shock moving from the west side of the city of Chicago to a little small Wisconsin town. But I immediately fell in love with the environment, and of course, it didn't take long for my name and reputation to follow me. Growing up in the city, you just don't take no shit. You don't play no games, and you certainly don't allow anybody to mess with you. So in a short amount of time, over about a year, maybe even two, needless to say, everybody knew my name and knew what I was about, and that I just did not play that small town game. So fast forward, it was about 2006, I would say. I started working at this little bar in my town, and it was owned and operated by an outlaw. Now, I don't mind saying that club name and talking about these stories a little, because Hollywood has already outed me and told everybody where I come from. So I worked at this bar for a man named Motley, who is now deceased, and at one time he was an outlaw. So needless to say, as I worked there as a manager and as a bartender, I got to know a lot of outlaws, and they were cool brothers, man. I had a lot of good times with those guys. Shout out to those brothers. You know what chapter I'm talking about. So, for a little bit of time I spent there, I hung out, we partied, we had a good time, and that's when I was introduced to the one percenter world. This is also when I met my best friend, my big brother, my biker dad that I call him, Red. We'll get back to him later on in this story. So I met a man by the name of Solo, who later became like a father to me, one of my best brothers. He was also a member of a 1% club a long time ago, back in the 60s and 70s. Just a little club that you might have heard of called the Banditos. He was out of Washington State. Somehow he ended up up here, and we got to be friends, and we got to hanging out talking one night. And I was telling him how much I wish I could get a Harley. And he happened to have had a 1982 FLT, an old Shovelhead bagger, one of the first of its kind. He had this bike in bags, boxes, crates, milk jugs, you name it. This bike was all tore apart, sitting in the garage, just waiting for somebody to put her together and take her out riding. Well, I later became that man. He gave me this bike on credit, and that bike sat in my garage for a year. And later on, I ended up building that bike. When me and my brother Red went and picked this bike up, he told me, hey brother, don't worry about it, man. I can build this bike in a weekend. So needless to say, after a year of it sitting in my garage, I was pretty upset with him. I thought, man, I thought this was a good brother of mine, and he's not a man of his word. But actually what he was doing is teaching me one of many life lessons he's taught me. And this lesson was, you're not a real biker if you can't work on your own bike. All this BS when guys that are out here now, they buy their new CBOs and, they buy it at the dealer and they go riding, and when something goes wrong, they call a tow truck and Harley works on it for them. Those ain't bikers. Those are just dudes that own Harleys. My brother Red taught me a very valuable lesson. Don't depend on nobody. Do it yourself. So needless to say, after a year of it sitting in my garage, I was kind of getting mad. I was upset. Here I am with a cool Harley in my garage, and I'm not riding it. So I spent the weekend, after reading my Bible, that I called it, which was the manual. I read this manual from front to back every day for over a month. Finally, things started making sense to me when I was looking at it laying all on the floor. Now, I wasn't mechanically inclined. I didn't even own a screwdriver. I literally went to Walmart and bought a toolbox. One of those Christmas specials with 200 sockets and wrenches and socket wrenches and screwdrivers and all kinds of stuff like that, and ratchets. That I went and bought one of those for Christmas. And I had that sitting in my garage, and I used that very toolbox that I still have to this day. I used that toolbox to build my first Harley. And he was right. In a weekend, I built that Harley. I put the motor in, tranny in, got everything in, fenders, tanks, bars. It was crazy. Everything just made sense to me, and everything just worked out. Now, don't get it twisted. That does not mean after I built this bike that I did anything right. Because, of course, my brother Red and Motley, both, pretty much stole my bike for a week, did not allow me to ride my own motorcycle, as they went over this bike and fixed all the mistakes that my dumb ass made, and made the bike safe for me to ride. I had some guys help me out with the wiring, and before you know it, I was on my first Harley Davidson, out riding. And let me tell y'all something, man. It was no better feeling. I still remember it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning when I put my clutch cable on and adjusted it and had the bike running, and I was able to put one down, put it in first gear, and take off. It was cold outside, but I swear it felt like it was 90 out because I was so excited. I was so happy. And I took off and jumped on the highway, and I got on that bike and I tore its ass up. I was so happy. And that's when it kind of hit me. My brother taught me a very good lesson. You're just not a real biker if you don't build your bike or work on your bike daily. It's not just about riding your bike. It's not about putting your cool little wallet chain on, your Harley leather jacket, your Harley glasses, your Harley hat, your Harley boots, your Harley jeans, with your Harley shirt. It's not about that, man. It's about the bond that you build with your motorcycle. It's about the bond you build with your brothers that surround working on your motorcycle. There's been no better feeling in my life than me and my brother Red sitting in a garage working on a bike together. I'm sure it drove him nuts with me hanging over his back and hovering over his shoulder like a little brother, watching him work on bikes so that I could learn how to be a mechanic like him. But you know what? He took the patience and he allowed me to sit there and learn from him, which was very valuable in life. That man taught me everything I know about motorcycles. He taught me everything I know about being a biker. I mean, funny story about my brother Red is I remember I wanted a leather jacket so bad, man. I had to have a leather jacket because to me, you just weren't a biker unless you had a cool leather, right? And that is kind of a part of it, I guess, in some corny way. So I went and bought a jacket that I could only afford at the time, and it was a brown leather jacket, a brown one. And what did it say on the back? The one thing that us bikers fucking hate. Live to ride and ride to live, brother. Oh my God, it was a hideous jacket. But needless to say, I remember when I walked into his house, he looked at me and he said, "Come here." With his big old paw in the air, pointing at me, saying, "Get your ass over here." I walk up to him and I'm like, "What?" He immediately starts unsnapping all of my buttons, undoes the belt on the bottom of my jacket, unzips everything, and he's like, "Dude," he's like, "you're all tight and all bothered trying to look all GQ." He goes, "If you want to be a biker, you gotta hang loose, man. Everything's gotta be loose. You know, you don't care how the jacket looks. You're just wearing it." I bet you that brother's laughing right now if he's watching this video. Like I said, y'all, my brother Red, he's my biker dad, man. He taught me everything. I thought I was cool. I thought I knew some shit. I thought I was a gangster. But he pretty much taught me none of that mattered. So enough about that asshole. Back to my Shovelhead. Let me tell y'all something, man. You're just not a real biker unless you haven't owned an old Shovelhead. Because I'll tell you what, man, an old Shovelhead will make you or break you. Man, that Shovelhead made me cry, made me mad. I've still got holes in my walls in my garage from working on that stupid damn bike. Every time I took this bike out, something fell off, something would break. I literally could never keep a brace for the carburetor on that bike. I mounted it where it was supposed to be mounted. It broke every time. I put 2 different steel mounts on it. They broke every time. Like, it was impossible to keep a metal brace to hold my carburetor up. It was crazy, man. The bike literally just hated me. So even though it was my first Harley and I loved it so much, I hated this bike. And I'm a firm believer, only those who have owned a Shovelhead can understand me when I say I love this bike, but I fucking hated it. I mean, every time I took it out, man, it was just, God, I hated that bike. Most people keep their first Harley. Me, I couldn't wait to get rid of it. And I don't miss it at all. I really don't. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Danny D-Lo Biker TV. I hope you enjoyed that story. The story of my first Harley. So let's hear what kind of Harley you guys got when you first bought a Harley. I love hearing y'all's stories and I love talking with y'all. So until the next episode, and speaking of the next episode, stay tuned this Sunday. I'm going to address this video that I've been sent by throngs of you, sending me the link of this little American cholo dude. So he's so adorable. So I'm going to be addressing that little bullshit issue. But until the next episode, as always, you know the drill. Keep it real and keep it 100. I'll let y'all, man. Peace.